Admiral Cole had served in the human fleet for 32 years. He had seen battles and negotiations. He had shaken hands with alien diplomats and watched stars die in the cold vacuum of space. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for the morning of June 17th, 2347. He stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, a heavy cruiser stationed near the Mars colony, when the first distress signals came through. The communications officer, a young man named Hayes, looked up from his console with confusion on his face. "Sir, we are receiving emergency broadcasts from Earth, multiple sources. They say the planet is under attack." Felt his stomach drop. Under attack? By whom? We have no hostile contacts in this sector. Unknown, sir. The signals are chaotic. I am trying to clean them up. Commander Lisa Grant, second in command, rushed to the main and pulled up a live feed from Earth's orbital defense network. What she saw made her go pale. The screen showed hundreds of alien ships surrounding the blue planet. They were massive vessels, dark and angular, covered in strange symbols that no human had ever seen before. "Those are not any species we have encountered," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have no record of this design in our database." Moved closer to the screen. "Hail them, all frequencies, find out who they are and what they want." Worked his console frantically. "Sir, I am broadcasting on every channel. There is no response. They are completely ignoring us." Then the attack began. The alien ships fired weapons that looked like concentrated balls of purple light. When these weapons struck the surface of Earth, they did not explode in the traditional sense. Instead, they created gravitational anomalies that pulled everything toward a central point. Buildings, vehicles, people, even the ground itself collapsed inward like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. Watched in horror as New York City disappeared in seconds. The entire metropolitan area simply folded into itself and vanished, leaving nothing but a massive crater. The same thing happened to London, then Tokyo, then Sydney. One by one, the great cities of Earth were erased from existence. "Get me Fleet Command," ordered, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Fleet Command is not responding, sir," replied. "Their headquarters was in Geneva. Geneva is gone." Lisa pulled up casualty estimates on her screen. The numbers climbed so fast that the computer could barely keep up. 1 billion dead, 2 billion, 3 billion. The count just kept rising. "Why are they doing this?" Lisa asked no one in particular. "We never even met these people. We have done nothing to them." Had no answer. He could only watch as his burned. The attack lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of systematic destruction that killed 9 billion human beings. 9 billion lives ended without warning, without explanation, without mercy. When it was over, the alien fleet simply turned and flew away. They did not attempt to land troops. They did not try to claim territory. They did not respond to any of the desperate messages humanity sent begging for peace or at least an explanation. They just left. Stood motionless on the bridge for a long time after the aliens departed. His wife had been visiting her sister in Chicago. His daughter, Amy, had just started her first year at the academy in San Francisco. Both cities were gone. Both of them were gone. "Admiral," Lisa said gently, "the Colonial Senate is calling an emergency meeting on Titan Station. They are requesting all surviving fleet commanders to attend." Did not respond immediately. He was thinking about the last conversation he had with his daughter. She had been excited about her classes, about making new friends, about all the possibilities that lay ahead of her. He had told her he was proud of her. He had told her he would see her at the winter break. He would never see her again. "Admiral," Lisa prompted again. Finally turned away from his face had changed. The shock and grief were still there, but something else had appeared beneath them. Something cold and hard and patient. "Set course for Titan Station," he said quietly, "and tell the Senate that the Retribution stands ready for whatever comes next." Lisa nodded and began issuing orders to the navigation team. Continued monitoring communications, trying to piece together what had happened and who these attackers were. The entire bridge crew moved with the mechanical efficiency of people who had not yet fully processed the magnitude of what they had witnessed. As the Retribution turned toward the outer solar system, remained at the main, he watched Earth grow smaller in the distance. The planet still existed, technically, but it was covered in smoke and ash and the ruins of everything humanity had built over thousands of years. Reports came in from the colonies over the next several hours. Mars was untouched. The mining stations in the asteroid belt were untouched. The research facilities on Europa and Titan were untouched. The attackers had bypassed every human outpost and gone straight for Earth. They had targeted the specifically, as if they knew exactly where humanity had begun and wanted to destroy it at its source. Of the 12 billion humans who had existed that morning, only 3 billion remained. They were scattered across dozens of colonies throughout the solar system and beyond, suddenly orphaned from the world that had given them birth. Finally managed to identify the attackers through intercepted alien communications. "Sir, I have a match. The ships belong to something called the Empire. According to Galactic Council records, they are one of the oldest civilizations in this region of space. They have existed for over 10,000 years." "Have we ever had contact with them?" Lisa asked. "No, Commander. This appears to be our first encounter." Absorbed this information in silence. They had traveled who knows how far to destroy a species they had never met. They had murdered 9 billion people and then simply flown away without a word. The Retribution continued its journey toward Titan Station. Behind it, Earth continued to burn, and in the heart of Admiral Cole, something that had once believed in peace and diplomacy and the basic goodness of intelligent life began to die. In its place, something else was being born, something that would remember this day for the rest of his life, something that would make sure the galaxy never forgot what had been done to humanity. The stars had always seemed beautiful too, full of wonder and possibility and the promise of friendship with other beings who shared the universe. Now they just looked cold. Titan Station was the largest human structure outside of Earth. It floated in orbit around Saturn's biggest moon, a massive wheel of metal and glass that served as the administrative center for all colonial operations. In normal times, it was a busy place full of scientists and traders and government officials going about their daily work. These were not normal times. The Great Council chamber at the heart of the station was designed to hold 500 people. Today it held over 2,000. Every surviving senator, every fleet commander, every colonial governor who could make the journey had come to Titan Station. They filled the seats and stood along the walls and crowded into the hallways outside, all of them united by grief and confusion and a desperate need to understand what had happened to their species. Senator Vance stood at the central podium. She was a tall woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. Before the attack, she had been known as one of the strongest voices for peaceful expansion into the galaxy. Now her face was hollow and her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edges of the podium. "I call this emergency session to order," she announced. Her voice echoed through the silent chamber. "We are here to discuss the future of humanity in the aftermath of the attack on Earth." She paused to compose herself. Like everyone else in the room, she had lost people she loved. Her 2 sons had been working at a research facility in Berlin. Berlin no longer existed. "We have received communication from the Galactic Council," she continued. "For those unfamiliar, the Galactic Council is an assembly of over 100 spacefaring species that governs interstellar relations in this region of the galaxy. Humanity applied for membership 3 years ago, but our application was still pending at the time of the attack." A murmur ran through the crowd. Admiral Brooks, a heavy-set man with a face, stood up from his seat in the military section. What does the council have to say about the massacre of 9 billion people? Took a deep breath. They offer their condolences. They express regret at the tragic loss of life, and they offer to mediate peace talks with the Empire. The chamber exploded with angry voices. Raised her hand for silence, but it took several minutes for the crowd to settle down. Peace talks, shouted over the noise. Those monsters slaughtered our entire planet without provocation. What is there to talk about? Senator Gray, the oldest member of the Assembly at 93 years old, rose slowly from his seat. Despite his age, his mind was still sharp, and his voice still carried authority. Let us hear the full message before we react. Senator Vance, please continue. Nodded gratefully. The Galactic Council claims that this attack was based on a misunderstanding. According to their sources, they intercepted human military communications and believed we were planning an invasion of their territory. They considered the attack on Earth to be a preemptive defensive action. A defensive action, Cole repeated from the back of the chamber. He had been silent until now, watching and listening. They killed 9 billion civilians as a defensive action. That is the position, yes, confirmed. The Council strongly advises us to accept diplomatic resolution. They warn that the Empire is extremely powerful. They have controlled their territory for 10,000 years. They have never lost a war. Lieutenant Commander Torres stood up from the junior officers section. She was young, only 28 years old, but her eyes had the look of someone much older. Her parents, her brother, her grandparents, and everyone she had grown up with had died on Earth. What are the terms of this proposed peace? She asked. Consulted her notes. We would acknowledge the incident as a mutual miscommunication. There would be no reparations from no one would be held accountable for the deaths. In exchange, the Empire would officially recognize our right to exist in our remaining colonies. The Galactic Council would expedite our membership application and provide economic support for rebuilding. The silence that followed was heavier than any noise could have been. 3 billion survivors were being asked to forgive the murder of 9 billion people in exchange for permission to continue existing. Walked down the center aisle toward the podium. Every eye in the chamber followed him. When he reached the front, he turned to face the assembly. I have served this government for 32 years, he said. I have always believed in diplomacy. I have always believed that intelligent beings could resolve their differences through reason and communication. I believed this because I thought the universe was fundamentally fair. I thought that if we were good and peaceful and honest, others would treat us the same way. He paused and looked around the room at all the grieving faces. I was wrong. The universe does not reward goodness. It rewards power. They did not attack us because we threatened them. They attacked us because they could, because we were weaker than them, because they knew no one would stop them. Leaned toward her microphone. Admiral Cole, are you suggesting we reject the Council's offer? I am not suggesting anything, replied. I am moving to reject diplomatic resolution with the Empire. I am moving that humanity prepare for war. Brooks immediately stood. I second the motion. A wave of voices rose in support, but Gray raised his hand again. Before we vote, we must consider the consequences. The Galactic Council has been clear. If we choose war, we stand alone. No one will help us. They have 1,000 star systems under their control. We have a few dozen colonies and a fleet that was designed for exploration, not combat. Met the old senator's eyes. Senator Gray, I respect your wisdom and your caution, but I must ask you this. Every species in that Galactic Council watched our world burn. Not one of them lifted a finger to help. Not one ship came to defend us. Not one voice spoke out against what they did. They offer us peace built on the graves of our children, and they expect us to be grateful. Is that the kind of galaxy you want to live in? Was quiet for a long moment, then he slowly shook his head. No, it is not. Then help me change it. Called for the vote. One by one, the representatives cast their decisions. Senators, governors, admirals, and civilian leaders all recorded their choices. When the final tally appeared on the main screen, the result was overwhelming. 94% in favor of war. Stared at the numbers for a moment, then looked out at the assembly. The motion carries. Humanity officially rejects diplomatic resolution with the Empire. We are now at war. Nodded and turned to address the crowd one final time. They think they destroyed us. They think we are too broken and too weak to fight back. They are wrong. It will take time. It will take sacrifice. But one day we will stand before them and they will understand what they have awakened. He walked out of the chamber, and the future of humanity walked with him. After the vote on Titan Station, humanity did something that no one in the galaxy expected. They disappeared. The colonies went dark one by one. Trade routes were abandoned. Communication channels were closed. The species that had once been eager to join galactic civilization simply retreated into the shadows and stopped talking to anyone. The Galactic Council sent inquiries. They received no response. The Empire sent scouts to monitor human territory. The scouts found empty stations and abandoned outposts. It appeared that humanity had accepted their fate and crawled away to die quietly in some forgotten corner of space. They were satisfied with this outcome. They had eliminated a potential threat and could return to their normal affairs. Within a few years, most of the galaxy had forgotten that humans even existed. But humanity had not gone anywhere. They had simply moved underground. Deep in the outer reaches of the solar system, far from any regular shipping lanes, Admiral Cole oversaw the construction of Omega Station. It was a massive facility hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to all forms of detection. Here, the minds of humanity gathered to work on a single mission. They would find a way to defeat the Empire or die trying. Doctor was the chief weapons researcher at Omega Station. He was a small man with thick glasses and nervous hands, but his mind was one of the sharpest in human history. For the past 15 years, he had been studying debris collected from Earth in the days after the attack. Specifically, he had been analyzing fragments of the gravitational weapons that had destroyed everything he loved. "We have done it," announced to the Command Council on a cold morning in 2367. "We have successfully reverse-engineered the gravity bombs." Leaned forward in his chair. "Show me." Pulled up a holographic display showing the technical specifications. They use a system that creates localized gravity wells. These wells pull matter toward a central point with such force that everything collapses into itself. It is elegant but inefficient. They waste a tremendous amount of energy in the process. "And our version?" Commander Lisa Grant asked. She had aged in the past 20 years, her hair now streaked with gray, but her eyes were still sharp and her dedication had never wavered. "Our version is 60% more efficient," said with a hint of pride. "We can create the same destructive effect with much less power. This means smaller weapons, faster deployment, and the ability to carry more of them on each ship." Admiral Brooks nodded approvingly. "What about propulsion? We cannot fight them if we cannot catch them." Lieutenant Commander Torres stood up to address this question. She had grown from a grieving young officer into one of the most brilliant tactical minds in the fleet. Her specialty was ship design, and she had spent the last decade developing something revolutionary. They use a form of faster-than-light travel that requires large, fixed gates, she explained. They must travel between predetermined points, which limits their flexibility. We have developed something different. She pulled up her own holographic display. "Our new drive system generates a bubble of warp space around the ship. We can travel faster than light without any gates. We can go anywhere, anytime, without the knowing where we will appear next. And we are faster than anything they have." Studied the display carefully. "How many ships have been equipped with this system?" "All of them," replied. 300 capital ships and 2,000 support vessels. Every single one is faster and more maneuverable than anything in the fleet. The door to the command center opened, and Admiral Victoria Hayes walked in. She was 35 years old now, but she carried herself like someone much more experienced. When Earth burned, she had been a 15-year-old girl watching the news feeds with her family in the Mars colony. Her parents had died in the panic that followed, victims of a shuttle accident during the evacuation chaos. She had sworn that day to dedicate her life to making the pay. Now she commanded the First Strike Fleet, the most advanced military force humanity had ever assembled. Long-range reconnaissance reports are in, Victoria announced. I have detailed intelligence on them. She pulled up an image of a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. This is Prime. Population approximately 22 billion. It is the political, economic, and cultural center of their empire. If we destroy their ability to wage war from this planet, the rest of their territory will fall apart. Defenses asked. Minimal orbital installations. A small defensive fleet, maybe 50 ships. Victoria smiled coldly. They have never been attacked at home. They do not believe anyone would dare. Their arrogance has made them vulnerable. Cleared his throat nervously. There is one more thing to discuss, the Spectre project. Nodded, report. We have developed a stealth coating that renders our ships invisible to all known forms of detection. Sensors, visual observation, gravity measurement, everything. A ship equipped with this coating can fly right past enemy forces without being noticed. We call it ghost technology. Lisa let out a low whistle. So we can move our entire fleet to there without them seeing us coming. Correct, confirmed. They will have no warning until we choose to reveal ourselves. Stood up and walked to the main. Outside, he could see the hidden shipyards where hundreds of warships waited in the darkness. 20 years of work. 20 years of grief transformed into steel and fire. 20 years of waiting for this moment. The Galactic Council reached out again last month, Victoria mentioned. They are asking about our intentions. They are concerned about our silence. Let them wonder, said without turning around. They had their chance to stand with us. They chose to protect our murderers instead. Now they can watch and see what happens when humanity stops asking for permission. He turned to face his officers. Send word to all commands. Operation Reckoning begins in 30 days. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have built will be deployed against Prime. We will show the galaxy what we have become. Victoria nodded sharply. And what message should I send to our people? What should I tell them we are fighting for? Thought about his wife and his daughter Amy. He thought about the 9 billion souls who had died without understanding why. He thought about 20 years of cold patience and burning rage. Tell them we fight for the dead, he said quietly. Tell them we fight so that no one will ever do this to us again. Tell them that humanity remembers and now humanity repays. The countdown to vengeance had begun. The Empire had enjoyed 10,000 years of absolute security. In all that time, no enemy had ever reached there. No foreign ship had ever entered their core systems without permission. They had conquered dozens of species and destroyed countless civilizations, and not once had they faced real consequences. They believed themselves untouchable. On the morning of Galactic Standard Date 2367.156, they learned how wrong they were. Admiral Victoria Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, flagship of the First Strike Fleet. Around her ship, hidden by ghost technology, floated 300 of the most advanced warships humanity had ever built. They had traveled for 2 weeks through empty space, avoiding all patrols and detection systems. Now they hung in orbit above Prime, completely invisible to the planet below. Victoria looked at the beautiful world on her. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds drifting peacefully across the surface. 22 billion lived down there, going about their daily lives with no idea what was about to happen. For a moment she felt something that might have been doubt. These people below her had not personally killed anyone on Earth. Most of them had probably never even heard of humanity. They were civilians, families, children who had done nothing wrong. Then she remembered watching the news feeds when she was 15. She remembered seeing cities collapse into dust. She remembered the screaming and the crying and the terrible silence that followed. She remembered her parents dying in a shuttle crash caused by the chaos they had created. The doubt faded. Mercy was for people who had earned it. "All ships," she said into the fleet-wide communication channel, "disengage stealth systems. Begin bombardment of military targets." In an instant, 300 human warships appeared from nothing. The defensive fleet, a mere 50 ships that had been lazily patrolling the outer system, barely had time to register the contacts before the first wave of gravity bombs struck their formations. Ships crumpled like paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Within minutes, the entire defensive fleet had been annihilated. Down on the planet's surface, alarms began to sound. Chancellor of the High Council was in the middle of a routine meeting when his military advisor burst through the door with panic in his eyes. "Chancellor, we are under attack. Unknown vessels have appeared in orbit and destroyed our defense fleet." Stood up sharply. "Unknown vessels. Identify them immediately." The advisor swallowed hard. "Sir, early analysis suggests they are human ships." "Impossible," snapped. "The humans are a dead species. We eliminated their capacity for resistance 20 years ago." Before the advisor could respond, the first gravity bombs hit the capital city. Victoria watched the destruction from orbit with cold satisfaction. She had given specific orders about targeting. Military bases were priority 1. Government buildings were priority 2. Industrial facilities were priority 3. Civilian residential areas were to be avoided unless absolutely necessary. She was not here to commit genocide. She was here to destroy an empire's ability to make war. Commander Torres monitored the tactical display beside her. Primary military installations destroyed. Government complex eliminated. Their command structure is in chaos. "What about evacuation?" Victoria asked. "Civilian evacuation routes are clear as ordered. Their people are fleeing the cities, but we are not targeting the escape corridors." Victoria nodded. This was the difference between humanity and when they attacked Earth, they had deliberately targeted population centers. They had killed as many people as possible. Victoria could do the same thing right now. She could turn Prime into a graveyard with a single command. But that would make her no better than them. And humanity was better than them. They would prove it by winning this war without becoming monsters. "The Chancellor's emergency bunker has been located," Torres reported. "Marine assault teams are standing by." "Launch the assault. I want alive." Captain Brandon led the Marine team that breached the bunker 30 minutes later. There were tall beings with gray skin and 4 arms, but they bled red just like humans. The Chancellor's personal guards fought bravely, but they were no match for soldiers who had trained for 20 years with a single purpose in mind. When the smoke cleared, Chancellor stood alone in his command center, surrounded by human Marines with weapons pointed at his chest. Brandon stepped forward and removed his helmet so the alien leader could see his face. "Chancellor," Brandon said calmly, "you are now a prisoner of the United Human Defense Force. You will be transported to our flagship to answer for crimes against humanity." Stared at him with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "This is madness. You cannot do this. The Galactic Council will not allow it." "The Galactic Council is not here," Brandon replied. "And even if they were, I doubt they would lift a finger to help you, just like they did nothing to help us." The Marines escorted through the ruined streets of his capital city. He saw buildings collapsed into craters. He saw his military headquarters reduced to rubble. He saw the sky filled with human warships that had appeared from nowhere and destroyed everything he had built. When they reached the shuttle that would take him to the Vengeance, he finally spoke again. Why? Why have you done this? Brandon stopped and looked at him with eyes that held 20 years of frozen grief. You really do not remember, do you? 20 years ago, your fleet came to our. You killed 9 billion people. You never even told us why. His face went pale. That was a defensive action. Your military communications suggested you were planning to invade our territory. We were protecting ourselves. We were planning a trade mission, Brandon said quietly. We wanted to be your friends. We wanted to exchange knowledge and culture and build something together, and you murdered us for it. He pushed toward the shuttle. Now you will come with us. You will stand before our leaders, and you will finally understand what you have awakened. Hours later, Chancellor stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, facing Admiral Victoria Hayes. Through the behind her, he could see his burning. Not destroyed, not the way Earth had been, but broken. His military was gone. His government was scattered. His empire was falling apart. What do you want? He asked in a voice that no longer held any arrogance. Victoria turned to face him. Unconditional surrender of the empire, full accountability for the genocide of Earth, and a message delivered to the Galactic Council. What message? Victoria stepped closer until she was looking directly into his alien eyes. Humanity remembers, humanity endures, and humanity will never forgive. The reckoning had finally come. The Galactic Council chamber had not seen such chaos in 300 years. Representatives from over 100 species filled the massive hall, their voices rising in a storm of alarm and confusion. The news from space had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, and no one could quite believe what they were hearing. The humans had returned, and they had brought vengeance with them. Speaker of the Collective, a being made of living crystal who had led the council for 2 centuries, called for order repeatedly before the chamber finally quieted down. He turned his faceted face toward the main entrance, where the human delegation was about to arrive. This session will come to order, announced. We are here to address the unprecedented military action taken by the human species against the Empire. The human ambassador has requested permission to address the council. The great doors swung open, and Ambassador Daniel Cooper walked into the chamber. He was a tall man in his 50s with silver hair and a calm expression that gave nothing away. Behind him walked Admiral Cole, now 70 years old but still standing straight and strong. His hair was completely white, and his face was lined with age and hardship, but his eyes burned with the same cold fire that had ignited 20 years ago on Titan Station. The council members watched the humans approach the central platform, with expressions ranging from fear to grudging respect. These were not the same people who had begged for help after Earth burned. These were not the desperate survivors who had pleaded for justice and been told to accept their fate. These were conquerors who had done the impossible. In 6 months, the human fleet had systematically dismantled the Empire. Not destroyed it, not committed genocide in return, but broken it completely. Every military installation had been eliminated. Every warship had been captured or destroyed. Every government official who had participated in the decision to attack Earth had been arrested and put on trial. The empire that had stood for 10,000 years had fallen to a species that had barely reached the stars. Daniel stopped at the central podium and looked around the chamber. Thank you for receiving us, Speaker. I know this meeting is difficult for many of you. 20 years ago, we stood before this council as victims, asking for justice. You offered us peace built on the graves of our children. Today, we stand before you as something different. A delegate from the Federation raised one of his many arms. Ambassador Cooper, the council must express deep concern about humanity's aggressive actions. You have conquered a sovereign empire without any authorization from this body. You have claimed 17 star systems as your own territory. This is a violation of galactic law. Daniel nodded calmly. You are correct. We have violated galactic law. The same galactic law that allowed them to murder 9 billion people without consequence. The same galactic law that told us to accept peace with our murderers. The same galactic law that every species in this room was willing to hide behind while we suffered. The chamber went silent. Stepped forward to stand beside Daniel. Let me be very clear about something. Humanity did not want this war. We did not want vengeance. We wanted to explore the stars and meet new species and learn and grow together. We wanted to be part of your community. That dream died with Earth. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of delegate after delegate. What rises from those ashes is something you have never seen before. We are not your victims anymore. We are not your charity case. We are a species that has learned what the galaxy truly values, and we have adapted accordingly. Speaker leaned forward, his crystalline body catching the light. And what does humanity want now? What are your intentions going forward? Daniel pulled up a holographic display showing human territorial claims. We will maintain control of all former military systems. We will establish defensive outposts throughout the neutral zone between our space and yours. We will trade with those who deal fairly. We will ally with those who prove trustworthy. But we will never again trust our survival to the goodwill of this council. We will never again be weak. A delegate from the Confederation stood up. You speak of distrust, yet you also speak of trade and alliance. These seem contradictory. They are not, Daniel replied. We have learned a painful lesson about the nature of this galaxy. Mercy without strength is just weakness. Hope without preparation is just foolishness. But strength without purpose is just destruction. We want to build something new, something better. A galaxy where species do not massacre each other over misunderstandings. Where power is used to protect, not to conquer. He gestured to the human delegation behind him. We have scientists ready to share technology that could benefit every species here. We have diplomats prepared to negotiate fair agreements. We have soldiers willing to defend against genuine threats. What we do not have is patience for the kind of politics that let 9 billion people die without consequence. Walked toward the edge of the platform, looking out at the assembled representatives. They tried to end our story. They failed. Now a new chapter begins. We hope it will be written in partnership with the species of this council, but make no mistake, it will be written with or without you. The choice is yours. Speaker considered this for a long moment. And what of the people themselves? You cannot hold them in subjugation forever. We do not intend to, Daniel said. In 50 years, when the generation responsible for the genocide has passed, when their children have grown up learning the truth of what their empire did, we will withdraw our occupation forces. But the military will never be rebuilt. That condition is not negotiable. The council began to murmur among themselves. Many of them had spent centuries believing that the established order could never change. Now they were watching it transform before their eyes, and they did not know how to respond. Turned to address the assembly one final time. You watched our world burn. You told us to be grateful for survival. You expected us to accept peace on our knees and disappear into the margins of history. You underestimated us. He paused, letting the words settle over the chamber. Humanity endures. We adapt. We overcome. And we never forget. The stars will never look at us the same way again, and neither should any of you. We are not the species you ignored 20 years ago. We are what you made us. Remember that the next time you consider looking away while innocents die. The human delegation departed, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a future none of them had expected. In the silence that followed, the representatives of 100 worlds realized that everything had changed. The children of Earth had risen from the ashes. They had chosen vengeance over diplomacy, and they had won. Now they stood among the stars as equals, shaped by tragedy into something harder and stronger than they had ever been before. The universe had tried to break them. It had failed. And that was the most human thing of all.